Seeking the truth never gets old, even when it hides in the shadows. Immerse yourself in the world of June's Journey, a free-to-play hidden object game set in the roaring 20s. Solve the mystery of the devious gossip spreader and celebrate our 7th anniversary with exclusive events, never-before-seen decorations, thrilling mysteries, and exciting giveaways. The adventure and the gossip awaits. Are you ready for the journey? Download June's Journey today for free on Android or iOS.
This is Find Your Dream Job, the podcast that helps you get hired, have the career you want, and make a difference in life. I'm your host, Mac Pritchard. I'm also the founder of Mac's List. It's a job board in the Pacific Northwest that helps you find a fulfilling career. Every Wednesday, I talk to a different expert about the tools you need to get the work you want. In every career, there'll be times when you face more competition for fewer jobs. And when this happens, you need strategies that give you an edge over your competitors. Kareem Rogers is here to talk about 4 extra steps you can take to stand out in a tough job market. He's a recruiter, a career coach, and the owner of the HR Depot. Kareem's company improves the quality of life of job seekers through resume and coaching services. He joins us from Chicago, Illinois. Well, let's jump right into it, Kareem. We're talking about extra steps you can take to stand out in a tough job market. And let's start with a strategic question, because many candidates don't take these extra steps. Instead, they choose a strategy that focuses on only applying for jobs. They don't network. They don't do informational interviews. They don't ask others for help. What do you think of this approach, both as a recruiter and as a career coach, of just sending out applications and doing nothing else?
So while I understand why a lot of job seekers do it, because that's what we're usually told what to do when finding a job, it is not what's going to give you the most value, or it's not going to increase the likelihood of you landing a job, right? Because I'm a huge proponent of this. If everyone is doing the same thing that you're doing, how do you stand out? And in today's market, it's a very competitive field right now. A lot of people are looking for many jobs. So when it comes to the job search, remember, it is a process. And so since it's a process, there are so many different strategies you can utilize to increase the likelihood of you landing a job. Because since it's such a competitive market out here, you have to think of different ways to make you stand out. And as someone who has recruited for the last 2 years, I have seen many job seekers utilize many different strategies to stand out, and some of them have been effective. And I really think that if a lot of job seekers understand these strategies they can utilize to increase their likelihood, then they would definitely get more interviews, more job offers, more opportunities in general overall.
So we're going to talk about those extra steps in a moment, and you've already outlined some of the benefits: more interviews, more offers. What about job search length of time, Kareem? In your experience, both as a recruiter and as a career coach, if all you're doing is sending out applications, are you going to have a longer or shorter job search compared to your competitors?
I would definitely say it varies. In my opinion, I would argue that it would take a longer process because, like I said, a lot of people who are applying for jobs, some of them may be more qualified than you, or they may have other advantages. So if the only thing you are doing is just applying for jobs, I'm not saying that you won't get a job, period, but you are limiting the likelihood of you getting a job in general. So if I was a job seeker, I would definitely say utilize many different strategies than just applying for a job, and that's it.
What stops candidates, in your experience, from doing more than sending out applications? Is it because they don't know how to do it, or fear? What's been your experience?
So from my experience, it's a lot of factors. Some of what you said. For one, a lot of job seekers are not taught how to increase the likelihood of getting job interviews and offers. So I can say from my experience, I've only really been taught, just apply for a job, wait to hear back from them. And if you don't hear anything, that means that they don't want you, right? And like I said, not saying that that's wrong, but it really limits the other information that is available to job seekers to inform them on what strategies they can utilize to receive more job opportunities. And also, it's fear. Um, some people, when they know that other job seekers are applying for a job, I don't know if you've seen it on LinkedIn where when you see a job application or a job posting, it says how many people applied or over hundreds of people applied. It really demotivates people to apply for jobs because they may feel that they may not be qualified compared to the other applicants. And for some people too, I think for some it's also just a big confidence in themselves where they feel like I know that I am a qualified candidate or a qualified job seeker. If jobs want me, then they should be the ones who reach out to me. And I have had those conversations with some people looking for jobs where they say like, well, if they want me, they should, seek me out. And don't get me wrong, as recruiters, we are proactive in looking for ideal job seekers for the openings that we are recruiting for, but at the same time, I would not recommend just waiting to hear from someone. It works both ways. Yes, recruiters are trying to be proactive in finding job seekers, but as a job seeker, you also have to be proactive yourself in order to find the jobs that you want.
Well, let's talk about how to be proactive. And you've got four recommendations you make. You call it a little extra steps you can take to stand out in a tough job market. And the first one on your list, Kareem, is to get your network on your side. What do you have in mind here, and why is it important to do this?
So I will say this. I don't care what industry you work in, what's your job, etc. Networking is one of, if not the most important skill you need to have in your professional career. There's a saying, I know we've all heard it. It's not what you know, it's who you know. So if you are a job seeker and you are looking for job openings, reach out to your networks. Find people who you know that may have connections who are looking for professionals in whatever field you are. And even if you don't have those networks, seek those networks. And I can just speak for LinkedIn specifically. What a lot of people do, I've noticed on LinkedIn, is they create their LinkedIn page and they only apply for jobs. And that is one function of LinkedIn. But what's so amazing about LinkedIn is you have the ability to connect with so many people on LinkedIn that you need to take advantage of that. There's people, even for me as an HR person, there are people in the HR field who have more experience, who may have connections to people in other companies you're applying for, or who just may just help you in general. And if you utilize that networking opportunity and you actually gain connection with them, you'll be surprised by how far they're willing to go with you. So just a prime example, I know someone who during the interview process, they had an opportunity to network with someone who was a part of the ERG,
Can you tell us what that acronym means?
employee resource groups. So those are usually the groups of employees in the organization, whether it's based on ethnicity, based on career development, etc. But basically, what this company did is they gave candidates an opportunity to connect or network with someone from an ERG if they wanted to. But since that person connected with this individual from an ERG and they actually had a high position in the company, the person liked them so much that they put in good word to them to the recruiter. So just something as small as that can work to your advantage if you utilize your networks correctly.
What advice would you have for someone who's not sure who to reach out to in their network, and how to find them and what to ask for? What's your best advice there?
So if we are speaking specifically on LinkedIn, I would first say think about what type of role or what your long-term career goal is, right? So say your career goal is to be a software engineer, a manager, a CEO or a CHRO, right? Once you figure that out, just do a search on LinkedIn. See who currently possess those positions that you're looking for. Once you see someone who you ideally want to reach out to them. Just introduce yourself, say who you are, say while you're messaging them and ask, hey, is it possible we can have a conversation? Now, will that always be successful? No. There may come a time where people may not respond to your request. That's okay. In that case, try to find other people who may be willing to help you. Here's another thing you could do too: find groups. So there are a lot of organizations, a lot of groups whose intentions are to provide mentorship for people who are trying to get network connections or just people to guide them. If you seek those mentorship groups or just those organizations, then you will be able to find like minded people or people who are more experienced that are willing to help you.
Let's pause here, Kareem, and take a break. And I want to dig into more of this in the second segment. Stay with us. When we come back, Kareem Rogers will continue to share his advice on 4 extra steps he can take to stand out in a tough job market. What's the best way to learn a language? Immersion. Live where the language is spoken and use it every day. I know this from firsthand experience. When I was in college, I spent a semester in Mexico City. I lived in a boarding house where no one spoke English, and my Spanish got really good. But if you can't go abroad this year, you can still learn a language, and that's with Babbel. I use Babbel's courses to maintain and improve my Spanish, and I see the benefits every day. I'm not surprised. One study found that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a full semester at college. And all of Babbel's 14 award-winning language courses are backed by a 20-day money-back guarantee. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/dreamjob. That's spelled BABBEL.com/dreamjob. Rules and restrictions may apply.
With supply chains becoming more complex, you need to stay on top of the latest logistics developments. So if you work with logistics, you need the Beyond the Box podcast from Maersk. It's the easy way to keep up to date with everything from digital disruption in logistics to the need for supply chain resilience in today's market. Find out more and keep ahead of the game with the Beyond the Box podcast on logistics insights at maersk.com/insights.
We're back in the Max List studio. I'm talking with Kareem Rogers. He's a recruiter, a career coach, and the owner of the HR Depot. Kareem's company improves the quality of life of job seekers through resume and coaching services, and he joins us from Chicago, Illinois. Now, Kareem, before the break, we were talking about 4 extra steps you recommend to stand out in a tough job market, and the first one on your list was to get your network on your side, and you gave us specific examples of how to do this, particularly working on LinkedIn. And I want to talk more about LinkedIn at the end of this segment because it's also on your list of 4 extra steps to stand out. But let's go to number 2, which is to think about things that make you stand out. And what are you thinking here? How does a candidate do this?
So this is definitely for candidates who just graduated or people who do side projects. So if you've done a project, if you've accomplished something in your classroom or something that if a recruiter or a hiring manager saw it and would be impressed, I highly recommend bringing that up during the interview process, or you can post it on your LinkedIn page as well, because it's those little things that may make someone curious to learn more about you.
And can you give us some quick examples? You mentioned side projects, work in a classroom, but doesn't this also apply to professionals wherever they might be in their career?
Oh, certainly. So, say, for example, if you are part of an organization like Toastmasters, right? And in Toastmasters, and for those of you who do not know, it is a nonprofit organization that helps you with your leadership and public speaking. If you've gained certain things as led a leadership development program where you're helping young people learn how to be better at communication and public speaking, or if you've been an area director where you are responsible for a whole district and making sure that they accomplish their goals. Little things like that will really make you stand out because it shows that you've done more outside of the job than inside. So just little things like that will really make you stand out as a job seeker and make someone interested.
So you make that list, and you mentioned perhaps featuring it in your LinkedIn page. What else can you do with these accomplishments, whether it was in the classroom or side business or in your professional work, to help you stand out to recruiters and employers? Where else can you share that information?
A website. So if you create a website where you showcase your work, say if you're someone who does design, or say maybe you're a software engineer, you want to show off some of your codes, a website would be a great place to showcase that work because I do know on some applications and even on your resume, you can post a link to your website. And if recruiters and hiring managers see that, that could also make them more curious to learn more about you. So a website is also an important place where you can showcase some of your side projects or your work.
The third of your four steps that you recommend for standing out in a tough job market is to do what other candidates don't do. What do you have in mind here, Kareem? And can you give us some examples?
So one is a cover letter, and it's funny because I used to be an advocate of the idea that cover letters are worthless. No, cover letters are very effective because it actually provides more information about you that a resume or application may not be able to tell you. So definitely creating an effective cover letter. Another thing too are 30, 60, 90-day plans. What 30, 60, 90-day plans are is you're essentially letting the hiring manager and recruiter know what are your plans the first 30 to 90 days once you are starting at a job. And I can tell you from experience as a recruiter, hiring managers love that, especially if you really thought this out in showing what your plans are. So just small things like that and just going a little bit above and beyond really makes you stand out.
Well, let's dive into both of those topics. First, cover letters. If you are active online, there's a constant debate about whether cover letters are a good idea or not. What changed your mind as a recruiter, Kareem, so that you now recommend cover letters to candidates?
I think for me, for one, it was never a universal thought. One was talking to some of my colleagues about why they think cover letters are very effective. And I think the main thing is we got to realize that cover letters just provide more information, maybe about a person's personality, about what they're passionate about, what they're looking for. And I think what it is with some recruiters, because we're already looking at the resumes, we're looking at the applications, we sometimes overlook the cover letters, but the cover letter may provide more information that we may not have thought about. So say they've done something that they didn't put on their resume, like say they won a public speaking contest or uh, a case competition or something like that. They may not have put that on their resume, but they probably put it on their cover letter. So cover letters are just that little extra information that may make you be more interested in that candidate if you give it a chance.
You mentioned doing a 30, 60, and 90-day plan for an employer. When should a candidate prepare this, and how do you get the information you need to do it effectively?
Personally, I say you submit it with the application. So, from my experience in applications I've seen, of course, that asks you to submit your resume, and usually that asks you as an option to submit your cover letter. But that asks, are there additional documents that you want to submit? I usually recommend submitting the 30, 60, 90-day plan with that information because you never know who's reading that, right? I mean, if you want to, you can wait when you're being interviewed, but I prefer putting it there because you never know who's going to see that. Like I said, just from my personal example, and that's what made me realize how effective they are. I have had meetings with hiring managers where they have told me, like, hey, I've seen this person's application. I see they got a 30, 60, 90-day plan. I love the information that they got on there. Use it. And you said where to find it as well. I say it depends on the research you've done. So research on the company, research on the job function, research on maybe what some feedback is from the people who've worked there or currently work there. Use that information to create a thought out 30, 60, 90-day plan to really show how serious you are about trying to attain this job.
The fourth and final recommended extra step on your list of ways to stand out in a tough job market is to be active on LinkedIn. And this is you've talked a lot about LinkedIn in both the first and now the second segment. Why do you keep coming back to LinkedIn as a way to stand out, Kareem?
So LinkedIn as a recruiter is my best friend. And what I mean by that is, and I think if I recall, there was a study that says this, it may have changed, but if I recall, 95% of recruiters use LinkedIn to find job seekers. I can tell you from my personal experience, I use LinkedIn a lot to find job seekers because I told you, we are very proactive as well in trying to find our ideal candidates. So what I mean by that, since this is where recruiters usually go to find job seekers, you may want to use LinkedIn to showcase why you stand out as a job seeker overall. And if you stand out, a recruiter will most likely reach out to you about the job openings they have.
LinkedIn, can it be overwhelming? There's so much you could do, and there's only so much time in the day. Do you have a short list of things that you recommend a job seeker absolutely do on LinkedIn? And how much time does it take to do that, say, in a typical week?
So there's a plethora of things. I definitely recommend posting content. So if you've accomplished something, if you have attended an important event, if you want to showcase some of your expertise or some of your projects, you could post that on LinkedIn. Engaging with other people's content. So, for example, there are some people in HR, people who are just professionals who post some content on LinkedIn. So engaging with their content, liking their content, commenting on their posts, it increases the likelihood that they'll start to notice you and say, "Hey, this person regularly comments on my stuff." Actually, I think I've seen it the same way with companies too. If you regularly engage with their content, the company does take notice of that, or LinkedIn lets them know, like, "Hey, this person regularly engages with your content." In terms of time. In terms of thinking about it, it may take time, but one thing that is beautiful about LinkedIn, especially in the context of creating content, posting content, it gives you the ability to schedule your content in advance. So if you already have an idea of what content you want to post on LinkedIn to start to garner attention from recruiters, hiring managers, maybe professionals from whatever company you are in, you can start posting that content in advance so that when it is posted, you are probably already doing something else if that's what you want to do. But I definitely recommend being active on LinkedIn because a lot of people have received opportunities just for being active on there.
Terrific. Well, it's been a great conversation, Kareem. Now, tell us what's next for you.
Yeah, so I am currently writing a book called 7 Second Resume. So it is a book that provides job seekers resume tips on how to optimize their resume so that they can increase the likelihood of receiving job interviews in whatever job they do. So a lot of people, they create these resumes, but they don't know the key things that are needed to really make their resume stand out. And as a resume writer and a recruiter, I've seen that. So I really just want to help job seekers optimize their resumes.
Terrific. I know that listeners can learn more about you and your work by visiting your website, thehrdepot.com, and that you also invite listeners to connect with you on LinkedIn. And when they do reach out to you, Kareem, I hope they mentioned they heard you on Find Your Dream Job. Now, given all the great advice you've shared today, what's the one thing you want a listener to remember about your 4 extra steps to stand out in a tough job market?
I want to let everybody know that it is possible, especially right now, the job market. A lot of people got laid off, and I know that a lot of people are trying to find another job. Getting rejections and dealing with the application process, et cetera, is very stressful. Believe me, I understand. But I want everybody to know, whether you're a job seeker or someone who may be interested in finding another job, it is possible. I believe in you, and please do not give up.
Next week, our guest will be Ann Tropea. She's the co-host of the Career Bitches podcast. Ann is also an author, a public speaker, and an advisor for student media at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. A job interview isn't a legal deposition. As with any business meeting, you need to know what you want to accomplish before you walk into the room. Join us next Wednesday when Andropea and I talk about why you need to do more in an interview than answer questions. Until next time, thanks for letting us help you find your dream job. This show is produced by Max List. Susan Thornton Hoff schedules our guests and writes our newsletter. Lisa Kislin-Barry Anderson manages our social media. Our sound engineer and editor is Matt Fiorillo. Dawn Mold creates our transcripts, and our music is by Freddie Trujillo. This is Mac Pritchard. See you next week.